Welcome to the Zencast. My name is Dale Pickles. I'm the Managing Director of B Squared and the host of the Zencast, a podcast for special educational needs and disability. Each week on the podcast, we talk about a different topic within the world of SEND to improve our knowledge, to provide support to professionals in schools, to empower parents, and to raise awareness. In this episode, we discussed the power of supported internships in helping young adults who have a learning disability or are autistic, or both, get into paid employment. And I was joined by Kirsty Matthews, the CEO of DFN Project SEARCH. And Kirsty's career spans over 30 years with senior leadership roles in both public and private organisations in health, social care and disability sectors. The Zencast is created and produced by us here at B Squared. Do you know about our AI features within our assessment software? Teachers can use our AI to help write their reports or summarise progress. Teachers can choose the key achievements and key next steps for each pupil, so it's very personalised. But the AI takes the hard work away, turning what you want to focus on and creating lovely paragraphs of text. The system can also translate into 40 different languages, helping to engage parents where English is not their first language. Visit the B Square website or click on the meeting link in the show notes to book a meeting with me to take you through the assessment software and all the AI features. Now, let's get on with that podcast. My guest on this week's episode is Kirsty Matthews, the CEO of DFN Project SEARCH. Kirsty's career spans over 30 years with senior leadership roles in both public and private organisations in health, social care and disability sectors. Kirsty's professional focus includes raising expectations for people with learning disabilities or autism, expanding employment opportunities for them, and ensuring supported internship programs are more widely available. Welcome to the show, Kirsty.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
You are very welcome. So today we're discussing the challenges facing young people with a learning disability and or who are autistic when it comes to employment. And you give me a shocking statistic that I have seen before. As soon as I started reading it, I knew how it was going to end. And that statistic is less than 5% of those with a learning disability known to their local authority in England secure paid employment compared to 80% of their peers.
Yes, that's right. And our entire reason for being here at DFN Project SEARCH is to help as many young people with learning disabilities and or who are autistic into what we consider to be meaningful paid employment. And we have an ambition for our organisation to be able to support over 10,000 young adults into employment by 2030. And that's the entire focus of everything that we do.
Wow. And it's a shocking number. It really is. 5% compared to 80%. And I've got to start with a kind of obvious question. Do you feel a lot of that is down to prejudice? That making the decisions before you've even met the person?
I wonder whether some of it is actually about a lack of allowing those young people to believe that they genuinely are able to enter the world of work. I think that in having gone through an education process with the support of an education, health and care plan, so much is defined about what that young person can't do, whereas actually what we want to be able to do is really help those young people understand that they can have those same opportunities to enter the world of work as any other young person. So I think this is about holding up that opportunity and creating a pathway where you can genuinely demonstrate to someone in their last year of education that there are genuine, real opportunities for them to be able to step into the world of work.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you sit there and going, why are they not getting the jobs? Why are these opportunities not available? And on one hand, it is that company or that person employing people in that company making assumptions about that person.
Yeah.
But also it's it's maybe understanding for them what support is available. If that person needs support, what does that look like? Is all that kind of missing information they have?
And I think the power of what we do is we actually create a pathway into work that is structured and supportive and really human and kind in its approach. And we create this phenomenal partnership between the local authority, the young person's education establishment, supported employment provision, our role as the providers of the model through DFN Project SEARCH, and then this incredible host business opportunity. And we work across both the public sector and the private sector. Our history was actually working within healthcare. So we were set up in the United States at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. So a lot of our early programs were working within the NHS, but we now work across a huge diversity of employers from Amazon and Asda, BAE, Siemens, incredible organizations, as well as in the public sector. And what that allows both the young person and their parents and families and the host business is to genuinely see the potential that that young person is able to bring, but gives them a protected year where they're not in an employment contract. There are no expectations put on them beyond them building their confidence and their learning and their experience. And they're able to work in this supportive environment with both a tutor and a job coach who is able to really understand the needs of that young person and match them to the host business and the work that they're being asked to do across 3 different rotations. And the difference in that young person from when we meet them at the stage of being selected to the point at which you see them at their graduation and see how much confidence and self-belief they have been able to gain through that program, then that's what's then setting them up for future success.
Because there is a really big difference from being in school and being in work. I remember my first Saturday job was working in IKEA. I was behind the scenes in the warehouse. It was a nice, simple job. Piece of paper came out the printer with, this customer's ordered this, go put it on a trolley. Simple job. I absolutely loved it. But it's a very different environment of lots of different ways to the school. So I think it's that adjusting to a completely different environment where you're kind of all equal with a boss, but it's very different to a head teacher. But actually, what am I doing? What skills am I doing? What does it look like? All understanding those sorts of things and those changes are a big part of that kind of difference between school and work. Is you can say it's different, but until you experience it yourself, you do not realise.
Yeah. And I think it's different for all young people. I think the additional challenge when you have a learning disability or you are autistic is knowing that you go from an environment at school where those needs are understood and met, and you're working at school in a supported environment, to the anxiety about whether people will show you that same degree of support and understanding in work, but probably even more importantly, whether that potential employer will understand the potential of that young person, and for the employer to be able to get past their fear of getting something wrong, of saying something wrong, of not having the right support in place. And so it is almost like a year-long interview where, as a young person, you get to really see that work environment without any contractual commitment, but also as an employer, you get the chance to be able to learn from this incredible cohort of young people. So we aim to have between 8 to 12 people on each of our programs. Some of our programs are smaller. For some of our programs, we may only have 5 to 6 young people. What we find is ideally 8 to 10 means that you have enough to be able to learn from each other and also feel like you have a supportive group that you can spend time with at the beginning and the end of every day. But I think I have 2 children myself who are now both working and in their mid-20s, but I actually think all young people would benefit from this incredible insight into what it really means to go to work every day. And as you were describing, that difference between being in school and then being in work, and what this gives through the DFN Project SEARCH program is this structured year for that person in their final year of education, where they get to experience both the support of still being part of an education establishment, but gradually build their competence and skills working with an employer.
When I was listening to this, that's great. And when you said about that having the 10 to 12 people, I suddenly went, it's kind of like still being in part of a class. So
Yes.
again, I think back to my first job, and you turn up and they're like, oh, this person's going to look after you. And you're literally on your own going, what's going to go on? Is this right? And you have so many questions, but you've got no one to kind of reflect with and talk to. You're just on your own with everyone else, but actually being part of a group of you going in together. Actually, you're all in the same boat and you can all have lunch together. Or things like that. And it's that whole, how's it going? I'm struggling with this. Me too. Okay, we'll bring that up. But it just gives you that more confidence in talking to each other. And again, not feeling like you're just being dropped. Get on with it.
Yeah. And that's one of the really powerful elements of our program, is that we aim to have an hour of classroom time at the beginning of every day and an hour of classroom time at the end of every day. And that will ideally be within the host business, where the host business is able to allocate a base room to DFN Project SEARCH and the young interns. And then there will be a job tutor and a job coach, but the job tutor, who is employed by the education partner, is then able, exactly as you say, to be able to start each day with some really clear explanations about what the learning goals are for that day, but also to bring people together at the end of the day so that you can have that time for reflection, but you can also support one another, you can celebrate what you've achieved. You still have that sense of having a safe place, which is your base. But often I've seen when I've gone on site visits that the job tutor and the job coach will meet up with the interns over the lunch break. And so, as you say, you've got some of the best elements of being at school, but also some of the best elements of being at work. So particularly we find for some of our young people, because some of the roles we encourage, there's a high degree of movement. You step away from that frustration of having to just sit at a desk for the length of the school day. There's a whole range of different experiences through each of the 3 10-week rotations. That young person will see different elements of the business and really begin to learn about themselves, about what brings them joy through work, and also what coping strategies they need, and also what kind of job really sparks their interest and passion.
So you said rotations a few times. So I was wondering, but you kind of confirmed it there, is a rotation like they do 3 completely separate companies, but it sounds like 3 separate roles in the same company?
Yeah. We usually try to have the 3 different rotations in the same organisation. For some of our smaller organisations, or if a young person has got a really particular interest that they've discovered over the first 2 parts of this academic year, then we do allow, we call them externships, but that's when a person usually in their final rotation is able to go out to another organisation that isn't the host business to give them different experiences. But when we're selecting our host businesses, we really try to think about whether they are able to offer ideally 3 very different experiences. So if I give 2 different examples, so if I give the example of working within a hospital on a supported internship program, then you may have one rotation working as a porter, which really suits those young people who just like to be physically out and active. One rotation where you may be working in a ward environment, potentially in a domestic support type roles, so cleaning or helping the patients to serve their meals or to support them through eating. And then maybe one rotation where you might be working in some of the corporate services and potentially entering data into a spreadsheet and doing more office type work. So that will give that person a chance to get a sense of how comfortable they are in directly working with the public, or whether they prefer to be working with a computer. and whether they like to be out and about and busy, or whether they prefer the security and safety of working in one designated office.
Because all of them are very different, as you said, to sitting in that classroom in school that you've got so comfortable or uncomfortable doing for years. Actually, again, I'm pretty sure I would have loved to have been a porter. It was a bit like the work I did. You get to kind of chat to people as you move them along, but it's nice, simple. Just where am I going here? Take them, cool. Make sure they're happy. Chat to them on the way. Nice, fun, active role.
Yes. And one of the other lovely benefits that we see is ideally we try and keep programs with us over many years. And some of our DFN Project SEARCH programs have been running with us for over 10 years. And so what we then have are young people who've been employed by the host business who are then able to mentor and support those young interns when they come in and really help them overcome some of their initial fear and uncertainty, because they know how it felt for them when they first started on day one, and they're able to demonstrate the potential of what that person is going to be able to go on and do. And the other thing that we really see is how shy and anxious and underconfident so many of the young people are when they come through the recruitment process and when they start on day one. And then we get to see them through their graduations, and the graduations are, well, the absolute highlight of all of our year. And you then see these young people sharing what they've been through, what they've learned. I went to a graduation at BAE, and just being able to see the pride, not just of the young person and their family, but also the managers and the mentors who'd worked with those young people during that year and seen them grow and develop.
So do a lot of the young people go on to work at those companies, or is it a fixed term thing and then they kind of go off somewhere else?
Yeah, we're really, really clear with all of our host businesses that there is no obligation at all for them to employ the young people who spend a year with them as a supported intern. It's really important for us that it's a genuine learning and development opportunity, and that there is no expectation either from the young person or from the host business that they are going to step into a contractual relationship at the end of the year. We're incredibly proud of the fact that we currently secure over 60% of the young people who come onto our programs secure what we describe as meaningful paid employment at the end of their internship. So that is more than 16 hours. It's non-seasonal, it's above the minimum wage, and it's in a role that is fully integrated into the workforce and meets all of the normal criteria. And between over 60% of our young people step into that meaningful employment, but not always with the actual host business. And to us, that's a real celebration of success, because that's showing that the person has used their time through the program to genuinely think about what they want to be able to do. And if it's not to be with the host business, they've got this genuine set of skills and experience and confidence that they are then supported into being able to apply to work with other organisations. And in the final term of the supported internship program, then the job tutor does a lot of work in helping those young people get confident in applying for jobs, in submitting their CVs, in going for interviews, having interview practice. So there's a lot of work to prepare those young people to be able to apply for work outside of the host business. But as I said earlier, there's also this lovely opportunity over the course of the year for the host business to get to know those young people and to really see their potential and not only focus on the limitations. And we've seen organisations really change their employment practice so that they are able to step away from some of the really restrictive practices around needing to be able to demonstrate achievement through GCSEs or be able to describe the fact, for example, you have a driving licence, taken away some of the unhelpful criteria that might have stopped that young person even being considered for an interview, and then creating a way of being able to bring them into the organisation.
Interesting you mentioned that restrictive. When I got my job at IKEA, it was a straightforward 2 interviews, which were basically just chats. So really quite happy with that. But after that, they introduced tests, numeracy and literacy tests, and you would come in for a team building day, and they would observe you doing all these activities with other people, and I go, yeah, I get that if you're going for certain jobs. My job was literally something came out of a printer with a code on, go get it from the location written on here, and how many it says. Quite simple. There are trolley boys. There are so many jobs there. It's like, you know what? It's very easy jobs. You do not. And actually, one of the students that my mum was teaching in a special school, one of the students she used to teach came in as a temp. MLD school, came in, did the job perfectly. It was kind of like quite even back then. It was frustrating me that you had to jump through these hoops just to match pieces of numbers on a paper. And you all go to IKEA now and pull it out yourselves. That's what I used to do. And it's not rocket science. It's clear, simple. I felt it really simple job, matching the numbers and the quantity on a trolley, learning how to load it, learning how to move. It just didn't make sense restricting. And I worry with AI and things like that and the automated process they go through, they're restricting it even more.
And I think what this program does is really bring that genuine opportunity to be able to see the whole human being and see how they are able to relate to their colleagues, to see how they fit in with the team. And one of the incredibly positive things that we hear back is that through bringing a young person with a learning disability or who's autistic into that work team, where people may have felt previously some anxiety about declaring their own neurodiversity, being able to declare some of the things that they found difficult in the workplace, it's made it a much more open and inclusive culture and really demonstrated a shift in team dynamic and people's willingness to slow down and want to explain and communicate how to do a job through breaking it down into its simple constituent parts and celebrating the fact that they've been able to bring this young person into the midst of the team and then collectively watch that person grow. It's really incredible how it can shift the dynamic of the organization.
It's quite cool. I like, because so you mentioned earlier you wanted to get 10,000 individuals getting to work by 2030.
Yeah.
And you've currently done that for just under 3,000?
Yes. Yeah. So we currently have, as of the beginning of September this year, we're working with 200 sites across England, Scotland, and Wales. And we have quite a good geographical spread. We're not in every local authority, and we would really like to be in every local authority. And we would really like to create a world where every young person who has a learning disability or who is autistic is able to access a supported internship program, because it is such an incredible bridge from education into work. So a lot of the work we do at the moment is trying to think about how we can just keep growing, but in a really sustainable, evidence-based way, and just keep learning from the different types of programs that we're running and learning how to work with different partners, both from an education perspective, but also from a host business perspective. But we're also discovering that we really need to learn about how to directly engage with the young people who might benefit from a program like ours, because it's really hard to capture people's both their interest and excitement, but also their belief that actually this is something that is possible for them to do. And so we need to make sure that we have really good geographical spread and that people know how to access programs like ours.
So you said, how many centres did you say? Was it 200?
200, yes.
I thought you were going to tell me it was a small part of the country, not across the whole of England, Scotland and Wales. That's impressive.
Yeah.
So for the children or the young people you work with, are these students from just specialist provisions, or do you work with students from mainstream? Is there a particular cohort which works for you, or that you're aiming for? Is it all children, all young people with SEND?
So at the moment, we can only work with young people predominantly who have an education, health and care plan, because that's the route through which we're able to draw down the funding to allow us to deliver the programme. We're really conscious that there are a number of young people with SEND who may not have an EHCP. And so we're looking as we grow and develop over coming years to see if there's a way that we may be able to step away from that being one of the qualifying criteria. We work with a different system in Scotland. So we have a different approach for the people that we work with in Scotland. But in terms of the education establishment that the young person comes from, then that can be mainstream education. We work with a number of further education colleges and some purely designated special schools. But for us, the only current criteria is the young person having the education, health and care plan. And we work really hard to try and genuinely be inclusive and look at the totality of that person's needs and whether the host business will be able to support them appropriately. So we just have to think really carefully about whether the environment might be incredibly noisy and distracting and difficult for somebody who might find a lot of noise and background disturbance difficult for them to be able to concentrate in, or if, as we talked about earlier, there's a high degree of physical moving of heavy weights or, a lot of time on that person's feet, then if the person has any physical disability that go hand in hand with their learning disability, then those are all things that we need to take into account. But we would like to consider that we are completely open and inclusive.
And in the information you sent me, it goes from 16 to 24. So is it a case of literally someone finishing school, age 16, you going into year 12, they could start with you?
Yeah, there is. So particularly, for example, if we're working with a further education partner and where that young person could stay within the education system until they're 24 and keep building their skills through education, we describe the programme as being for the young person in their final year of education. So obviously you need to have some degree of awareness about whether this is now going to be your final year. And that can be determined by a whole host of factors. Some young people just want to escape from school and find their way into the world of work, and others feel a huge sense of security and contentment and happiness about being at school, and everybody matures at very different times. So that's why we have this broad age range, and our classification of it being a programme for someone in their final year of education, because obviously once you've built those skills through that 12-month period, you don't want to risk losing those skills. So you want to then be able to step straight from that supported internship straight into work. So the person has to feel emotionally, psychologically, mentally ready to be wanting to make that jump. The challenge with 16-year-olds is there are some host business environments where they can't employ people who are under 18. And what we're also observing is the older that person is, sometimes the harder it is for them to transition from education to employment. So we tend to see our optimum results around sort of 18 to 19. But I'd like to think we can adapt the programme to then support somebody regardless of the age they are at joining.
I mentioned this before. There is a thing with EHCPs that they can go up to 25. But it's kind of like, what is that when they move from secondary into that further education? What's that qualification path? Cool, they've got that qualification, what's next? Are there any more qualifications for them? No. Well, they don't need an EHCP then. And actually, that's the point. You're going, right, we need to transition them to work. And your scheme is entirely what that's for, isn't it? They might have got the qualifications they're going to get to. They're at there. Now need to get them to work. It's that 5%.
Yeah.
So actually, the scheme you're talking about and all this work you do helps them transition.
And that's why we would really, really like people to understand and know about supported internships, both for themselves at a younger age, but also for their parents and carers and families to know about this opportunity, because then collectively, both from the education partner's perspective, but also from where you sit within your family dynamic, to know that this is something that you started talking about to know that this is something through your Senko that the school have made both you as the young person, but also your parent or carer aware as an opportunity, so that it can be part of some of those background conversations as you're growing up and thinking about your future options, to then have that sense of being able to work out when might be the right time for you. I hear some really sad stories about, I always ask, I try to go on as many site visits as I can and meet as many young people as possible. And when I ask them when they heard about DFN Project SEARCH, then they will so often play back to me, well, I'd done all the courses that college said that were appropriate for me to do. I didn't know what I was going to do next. The college didn't know what to do with me next. And then this was presented to me as an option. And I'd really like us to get to the point where the young people themselves and their parents and their carers are proactively suggesting this as a route to help their young person transition from education into employment, not as a point of last resort, but as something that they're really excited about and want to do from an early age.
You want it planned in. So, right, you're going to go to school, you're going to go to further education, you're going to get your functional skills, whatever it is you're going to get, and then we're going to do the transition year into work, and then you're going to be working.
Yeah.
Whereas I think parents believe, right, I've got my EHCP, cool, that sounds fine till they're 25. And then suddenly you get that point of, the college has done all the qualifications they can. Now what? Well, there's nothing left.
Yeah.
Oh, but they'll keep their EHCP. No. And it is this, what's next? And it needs to come. And I think parents aren't aware of this. They need to be aware that actually the education part or the EHCP only exists if there's the education and the qualifications are there. It doesn't just exist till they're 25.
And I think it's just being really aware that there is this opportunity for this supported and structured transition, which, as I said earlier, I think so many young people could benefit from an opportunity to understand how they're going to swap from education into employment. And, I think the apprenticeship route has begun to help young people understand that they can build skills in a workplace environment. And that's a way for them to be able to then understand and access work. I think what's so positive about supported internships and the DFN Project SEARCH program is that we do have a very strong evidence base. It is very structured and works to a model that has been tested over many years, but it is very individually tailored to the young person. And over the 3 rotations and over the process of the academic year, then that person is able to build their confidence, knowing that they are still within the safety net of being part of education, but giving them the confidence to then be able to then genuinely transition into work. And I think what we see is so many people, as you said, stay in college for as long as they can, hold on to their EHCP for as long as they can. But then we're seeing this growing group of people that fall off a cliff at that point that they leave school. And I don't like the categorization, but the categorization around NEET, so not in employment, education or training. And once somebody has fallen into that hole, it becomes even harder for them to be able to get out and find a way into work. And we know that, as we just touched on, the way that AI is being used to screen applications, and it's a really tough employment market for young people at the moment. And so this program allows people the security and the support of transitioning in a way that, although we can't guarantee 100% employment for everybody, and it feels really important that we're honest and transparent about that there isn't a guarantee of employment, but it absolutely maximizes that person's life chances.
It might not be 100%, but you are going from 5% as a national to 60%, which is very close to the 80% in reality. It's really close. That is phenomenal.
Yeah.
In schools, has work experience reduced? So when I was young, one of the things I loved, I did my 2 weeks work experience. I worked for a company in Croydon, near where I used to live. I was working in an office block. I had to wear not suit, but shirt and tie. And I had 2 weeks of just living a completely different life. And I loved it. And my daughter's school they recommend work experience. They recommend doing it over Easter or half term. and you need to arrange your own child's work experience, which basically relies on you having a job or somebody having a job that your child's interested in. And it's really hard because also you get these people going, oh, can my child come in for work experience? And I think that work experience, that first job, whether it is supported or not, really helps you understand what life is like outside of school. What do I want? Do I actually want to push trolleys around? Do I want to be on a checkout? Do I want to be dressing dolls in the window? What is it I want to do? That's the bit where you get a taste of it and you either go yes or this isn't what I thought. And it really, to me, it helps you grow up a lot in a very short time. And I think schools cutting it back because it takes out of GCSE prep time. They've already got a full curriculum, means they're not getting a taste for this, which means when you're trying to interview, you actually have no idea what you're really interviewing for. It's a really strange concept.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any direct experience of schools and work experience anymore. My children both left school over 7 years ago. I remember my son having work experience when he was in his final year, and exactly the same as you described it, being reliant on me to find somebody that he could then go and spend his time with. And I don't think my daughter had any opportunity for work experience. And I think particularly now that we have moved to this, I think, much more difficult to access hybrid way of working where so much is done over Teams, your experience of seeing your parents or your family or your friends at work, a lot of it is people in their spare bedroom speaking into computers. And so I think genuinely understanding some of those entry-level jobs into the world of work is so much harder now for young people. And I think work experience is an incredible thing, Saturday jobs, summer jobs, holiday jobs, all of those ways to begin to get a sense of what you might enjoy and what you might not enjoy. And I think particularly if you have a learning disability or you're autistic, and the barriers to then finding your way into the workplace then become even harder and more difficult. So yes, I think it's just about removing the barriers and giving people a chance to find out what it feels like. And so much of it is about that experience, isn't it? It's about how does it feel to be at work surrounded by people with a whole different range of ages and experiences, and how you build your confidence to feel safe and secure in that space.
I think a lot of those barriers are pure uncertainty. A lot of them are. So from that young person, the barriers are then, I don't know what I need and what I want. But for the employer is, we've got all these things we say we need, and we've got this person coming who doesn't meet it, but how do we know? And part of it is they've almost got to take them down and find out, which is kind of what your project is doing, all these. Because how many companies do you work with?
I mean, we work with over 700 different partners. So what that means is that across local authorities and education establishments and host businesses and supported employment providers, we're touching a high number of different partners, so able to really talk about what young people with learning disabilities or who are autistic need in terms of reasonable adjustments in the workplace, what it means in terms of barriers, and also just trying to help people understand what a supported internship is. Because I've been lucky enough to have seen DFN Project SEARCH working when I was in healthcare. So I've seen how it works. I've been to the graduations. Now I know what it feels like to be trying to deliver the programs. And what I'm really seeing is just such a huge lack of understanding about what a supported internship is, how it's funded, what it means for the young person, how it fundamentally changes their future for the better. But a lot of the challenge at the moment is just helping people understand what it is and why it's important.
It's phenomenal because then there are so many barriers, not for the company and the individual. And you've got like the access to work scheme, and again, you talk about all the work that does as well. And I think for a company's point of view, what a company wants is certainty.
Yeah,
they want to be able to put it in a spreadsheet, know the impact, and know exactly what's required. They're not going to get sued. It's not going to collapse. Not going to go. That's what they want. It needs to be as certain as possible, so it can be put in a spreadsheet and a box ticked, and everyone be happy. And I think having that internship makes for the company through that year learning and finding out. And then almost it's a year-long interview type thing. So they get to know and go, yeah, no, this person can work here. We know exactly what they need. It's going to be fine. And sometimes that's the sort of thing so many, I think, people, autistic or neurodivergent people, really bad at interviewing. Because you're walking to environments, so much uncertainty, new environment, loads of stuff going on, and you've got to perform like a seal for an hour. And yet you've got to perform like a seal, not in the job you're going to do, in a conversation, which has got no relevance to actually how well you can do your job.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't tick that box with a HR person who's never going to see again, they're not going to be... All those sorts of things just are all against anyone with learning disabilities or anyone who's autistic. If that person who's running that department came in and go, right, this is the job, can you do this? Yes, that would probably be much more successful.
Yeah. And I think I really liked your challenge around the certainty. And I think what DFN Project SEARCH allows potential employers to do is to balance certainty and risk and doing the right thing and doing the right thing well. And I think it is an incredible opportunity to circumnavigate some of those restrictive practices that, as you say, prevent that human being being able to be seen. And once the employers see who that human being really is and is able to see their potential, and through the processes and the methodologies that we use, which allows somebody to build their skills in a safe and supported environment, it's them being able to say to the employer, do you really want to risk losing this person who you've invested in and who has also invested in you? And what we see is an incredible degree of trust build up both between the young person and the employer, which means that they do then feel able to overcome some of the risks and step away from the need of certainty because they've had that experience. I think it's just bringing everything back to who we actually are as human beings and wanting to do the right thing.
Definitely. And also, I think once you start employing, I'm going to say, well, let's go for the autistic view. Once you employ an autistic person who sees the world differently, they're going to see that job differently. They're going to see that company differently. They're going to see their environment they're working in differently. I used to, when I worked, getting all the stuff from the warehouse, I used to say, this is a really bad design. You've got this over there and that over there. It's like, well, where should it be? It should be there. And they let me reorganize the whole of the warehouse. And all I did was I was just picking things and paying attention and going, why am I going there and there for this bit? They're going all up there for that bit. That makes no sense. When you have that, you always have that. Let's move them. And we reorganized and everything got more efficient. But everyone had been that way for years, but no one had questioned. I went in with my mind, started questioning things. It was more efficient and things like that. And it's that way it's always been, is often a phrase that happens in education, but it happens in business. Somebody learns something, there's a process, it gets passed on to the next person. Not anyone really questions it. But having that autistic mind, viewing it differently, can help you see maybe how you're communicating things, and also maybe miscommunication. There's lots of little things you can do to change things.
Yeah, I completely agree. And again, what we see happening and building on what you're saying about neurodiversity and people's autistic brains is that it has allowed people to feel much more courageous around calling out practices and being able to say, this is how I was trained to work in a very methodical and safe and appropriate way. And this is the way I will continue to work in that safe and methodical and appropriate way. And that has then spread through the team, through either an adherence to a process, which is the opposite of what you've said, but also an ability to be really forensic in identifying what is the maximum optimum process. And it is recognizing that we all bring that different way of thinking, that different skill set, and And if you bring the variety and celebrate the difference, then you build a much more effective team anyway.
And also, I think sometimes when you have your processes, you just think, oh, we'll do it this way. And you don't really think about it. For my daughter's year 6, they went on a wow trip, which ended up being to, I think, Jaguar's factory in Solihull somewhere in the Midlands. There was a big Jaguar Land Rover factory. And we watched the cars being built. And it was an amazing thing because the wheels arrived to the production line as the customer specifies it, all the bits come together at the exact same right time. So the correct colour seats will arrive, the correct wheels, all based on the customer's order. And they get to the point where they have all these bolts for putting the wheels on. And they have this line and they have this bag. And they used to have a part number written on this thing. And you pour a bag of these bolts in. And it goes in a chute. And then they come out into the gun as they're needed. Perfect. People were misreading the numbers. And they were putting the wrong bolts in. So when that person went to use that bolt on the wheel and it was wrong, not only was that bolt wrong, but the whole line going back was all wrong. The whole production line, the whole factory had to stop until they cleared it out because people were struggling to match numbers. They put shapes on the bags. This chute, square. This chute, triangle. That's one of those things like, why overcomplicate it? Let's just go simple. Let's do shapes. Let's do colours.
Yeah.
That's easier for every single person in the world.
Yeah.
And it's things like that where I go, we can simplify jobs. We can make jobs more accessible. And when we do that, it helps everyone.
Yeah. And I really noticed the same with language and the amount of jargon that we all as employers get used to using, and how you can just lose yourself in long sentences that actually don't say very much. And we really challenge ourselves within DFN Project SEARCH, not just to think about how we're working with the young adults that we're here to serve, but also how we communicate with each other, and trying to be much more concise and use plain English and be clear about what we're really asking of ourselves to do. And it's the same. It's consistent things that we can all do, which would improve all of our experience of work. And it's having the catalyst of a young person with a learning disability or autism that makes you think about doing things in a way that then improves the workplace for everybody.
It's so easy to get customers doing it and not even noticing it until you're asked or you're sharing it. And as you start sharing it, you're going, why are we doing it this way? I've always hated this. Let's redo it. But yeah.
And I think I was just going to say, I think it's just normalizing a different way for us to work as a society. So if as a parent or a young person, you see when you go into a shop or when you engage with an organisation that there are young people with a learning disability working in that environment, then it raises everybody's expectation about what is possible. And so bit by bit, we can begin to change the whole face of how we work and take those barriers that we were talking about out.
I think I'm going to leave it there. That's a really good way to end.
Yeah.
Apart from, I've got one last question. The name of the company. What's DFN Project SEARCH? Where did that come from?
Yes. So DFN stands for David Forbes Nixon, and he is our founder and patron. And so his abbreviation is obviously DFN. Project SEARCH was the name that our two founders, Erin and Susie in Cincinnati Children's Hospital, that they gave to the program. And so when David went to look for an exemplary program to allow young people with a learning disability to step into the world of work, because he was so inspired by his son Charlie and his desire for Charlie, who had a learning disability, to be able to genuinely access the world of work. So David bought the program from Cincinnati Children's Hospital. It was already operating at a small scale already in the UK, and has invested and allowed us to grow in the way that we're growing. So DFN to honour David's legacy, and Project SEARCH for the history that's come from Cincinnati.
I always like things like that, because I always like, generally when you ask a question, you almost assume, oh, it's some corporate thing.
No.
And generally, most of the companies, most people who come on, there's always that personal connection of someone seeing a problem they wanted to solve or celebrating something and go, everyone should have access to this.
Yeah.
So really like that. So thank you. And I think let's wrap it up. Great
Thank
podcast. You. Really, one of the ones where I'm really just, it's nice and inspiring. It's nice hearing actually going from 5% of children with learning difficulties can get up to 60% with this work. And that's not just supporting, it's a lot of people that helps and supports. And it's nice to hear that there is that route and that support to help young people into work. As always, you're going to find contact details for Kirsty and DFN Project SEARCH in our show notes. And she's also shared some information, says an annual report, with some other stuff. And there was an article and case study in The Sun, I believe, as well.
Yes, I mean, we had a brilliant piece of descriptive writing in the Saturday Times, which was through one of our partners with Amazon. So there's been a number of really interesting pieces of writing recently in the press about us.
Nice. So you'll find those, as always, in the show notes. And if you want to get in touch, let us know your thoughts, suggest topics or anything else, please send us a message through our social media accounts or send an email to hello@thesencast.com. The Zencast is created and produced by us here at B Squared. And do you know about our AI features within our software? Teachers can use our AI to help write reports or summarise progress, and teachers can choose the key achievements, key next steps for each pupil. So it is very personalised, and the AI takes the hard work away, telling you what you want to focus on and create the lovely paragraphs text for you. And the system can also translate this into 40 different languages, helping to engage parents where English is not their first language. Visit the B Square website or click on the meeting link in the show notes to book a meeting with me to take you through our assessment software and its AI features and what it can do for you. So thank you, Kirsty, for coming on. And thank you to everyone for listening. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the Zencast. It's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.